What's going on, y'all? This is Mile High Sports. This is your boy Swipa here with Ryan Blackburn, Ryan Chartburn, aka the man, the myth, the legend, Michael Malone's very own number man himself. Y'all, tap into this. The Denver Nuggets are getting ready to play versus the Boston Celtics.
Yep.
We got the clash of the Titans, the two NBA Finals favorites in the East and in the West. You got Nikola Jokic versus Jason Tatum. Who's going to win the MVP? You got the cast of role players and all-stars: Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr., Aaron Gordon, Jaylen Brown, Drew Holiday, Kristaps Porzingis, Derek White. Yo, anything and everything you could ask for. You got Joe Mazzulla versus Michael Malone. This is going to be a show. The Denver Nuggets went into Boston, beat them by 2 points. First loss they had in 21 games at home. And here we come in Denver, Colorado, after the Nuggets got beat by the Phoenix Suns. Yo, I think this is going to be an absolute bloodbath, Ryan Blackburn.
It's going to be a lot of fun. This is one of those games that everybody wants to circle on their calendar. It's one of those ones where you don't get it often during the regular season, where you get what we think are really the two best teams heading into a potential playoff matchup, a potential finals matchup between these two teams. I think these are the two teams that the general NBA kind of trusts the most right now in the East, in the West, in terms of being able to get there with as dominant as Boston has been and how Denver is the defending champs, obviously. It's very interesting to think about just how these two teams match up, because we've already seen it once, and it felt like Denver matched up pretty well with this group. I was pretty surprised.
So let me ask you this, Ryan Blackburn, again, Ryan Chartburn, Michael Malone's number one man for data and information.
What are we doing?
So when you think about this, what do you think is at stake for the narrative for the Denver Nuggets, for Nikola Jokic, for Jamal Murray, for Michael Porter, for Aaron Gordon? What do you think the narratives are that are at stake for this game?
It's funny. I think there's probably more at stake for Boston than there is for Denver, if I'm being honest. They're coming into this with, like, it's pretty clear. Boston is actually the favorites in this game. It's pretty interesting to think about Boston because of their point differential, because of how dominant they've been. They've got even a better record than Denver. They have a lot to prove in Denver, because Denver's one of the only teams that's actually really kind of had their number a little bit with the way that they played in Boston. So I'm curious to see, like, if that actually translates to pressure for Denver specifically. I'm not sure if it will, because I think that Joker's kind of stamped, Jamal's stamped. Like, these guys have played well against Boston in Denver before. I don't know if they have to prove anything to Boston specifically after going in there the first time. Do you think differently?
I think the conversation surrounding the Nuggets right now is everybody knows they're a sleeping giant, but Boston has a plus 11.3 net rating on the season. That's one of the literal best markers in NBA history for a regular season team. I think a lot of people look at Boston and they're saying that if you took their roster with their top 6 players, that should be a clear-cut champion. If they don't win the championship, the narrative around the Boston Celtics is they failed categorically, without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah.
They failed. So I think there's so much pressure on them, but I think they're handling it well. Obviously, they've only lost 13 games this year. They have been the best regular season team.
No doubt.
No qualms about it.
Yeah.
But I think for Boston, though, they have not yet defeated some of these playoff nightmares, the Jimmy Butler nightmares, the Miami Heat nightmares, the late game execution nightmares, the turnover nightmares, the three-point shot chucking nightmares, the Steph Curry pull up, drop coverage nightmare. Like, there's a lot of things they have to overcome. And I think for the Boston Celtics, the onus is on them. But I will say this, Jamal Murray is stamped.
Yeah.
But if you listen to some of the percolating information out there, it's like Jamal Murray, though, in the regular season, it's not quite as good as Jaylen Brown, which I think is very interesting. He's not good as Jason Tatum, which I think is true. That's fair.
That's probably fair.
But I think if you get into a playoff setting, Jamal Murray has shown that not only can he be one of the best, he can be the second best player on a championship run.
And that's the cool thing about games like this, is that this is going to be a playoff atmosphere. We even saw that against Phoenix a little bit, where Denver gets up for these games, at least for the most part. They'll mostly get up for these games and play pretty well. Jamal specifically plays really well in situations like these where, teams are like, they're trying to have a measuring stick game against Denver. All right, well, here's Jamal Murray whacking them on the head with that measuring stick. Like, that's just what he does. That's how he plays. And he kind of thrives in those moments, man. Just so many of the tough shots that he makes in the clutch. I think he's shooting something like 58% from the field in clutch situations this year. So he knows what it takes to be in this matchup. And he played great in Boston the last time these two teams played. So that's going to be one, despite the fact that they've got Drew Holiday, they've got Derek White, they've got Jalen Brown, they've got Jason Tatum, they've got all of these perimeter defenders that should, in theory, match up with Jamal. He just kind of works his way around them, gets to his spots, gets very comfortable, and plays really well.
Yeah, Jamal Murray last game had 35 points, had 8 rebounds and 5 assists.
It's
Jokic had
crazy.
34 points, 12 rebounds, and 9 assists that last game.
Also crazy.
Thing is, Jokic last year, I think people forgot about this. When Boston came to Denver January 1st, 2023, they beat Boston, I think, 123-111. And Jokic had 30, 12, and 12 on like a 94% true shooting in
It
that
was
game.
nearly a perfect triple-double.
It was
and,
insane.
like, 0 turnovers, too. Like, he was unbelievable.
Right. And now that was without Kristaps, but
It was also without Jamal.
right. Jamal
Yeah.
didn't play that game, and it was Bruce Brown that was starting.
Yep.
So I think a lot of this, I think Joker at home, after coming off a little bit of a struggle game versus the Sun, I think it's just the level of physicality that Nurkic was putting on him, meaning a level of fouling that was involved. And again, the paint was very crowded. And he doesn't do this often anymore, but he seemed to be locked into distribution mode early, but that just wasn't working. So I think Jokic, from the onset of this game, they're going to single cover Joker with Kristaps, with Al Horford. They're going to be like, look, you can do what you want, but we're not going to let nobody else beat us. So I'm actually really excited to see how he handles that. And I think for Jokic, the last several games have been like MVP conversation games.
Yeah.
This last game versus KD, I mean, they lost, but
he didn't play great, if we're
Right.
being honest. He didn't play great. There's a level for him to reach
Right.
now and to tap back into against a great team.
It's funny though, a bad game from Joker is 25 points, 16 rebounds, and 5 assists.
Oh,
Now,
yeah.
he shot 8 of 18 from the field. So
It's actually not that bad.
right. You know what I mean? It's not like it's terrible. That's still like
Yeah.
an all NBA player. But I think that's just how great Jokic is. But Jokic, let me ask you this.
Mm.
If he's able to come out versus the Boston Celtics, put on one of his standard Jokic masterclass performances, where I'm not saying 32, 16, 16, but 30, 12, 10, 36, 12, 11, 36, 12, 8.
Something crazy.
And after doing this already with 34, 12, and 9 versus Boston in Boston, what do you think Jokic, the messages that he could be sending to the NBA if he's able to do that again?
I think it's just one of those where the title's going to run through Denver, no matter what anybody else does. And it could be, you could have the greatest possible team assembled this year, like the Boston Celtics probably do. It's just not going to matter if you don't have a solve for that guy, because he can beat you in so many ways. He's proven it over and over again. And it's just so very clear to me that he is the best player in the world and has tapped into a level that very few players have ever reached before right now.
Yeah.
Notwithstanding the last Phoenix Suns game. So Boston's going to have to reach that level. They're not going to be able to drag him down. They're going to have to reach that level somehow, and they might be able to. Like, they're a great team, but I'm just curious to see how they plan on doing it, because I don't see a very easy pathway for them to do so.
Yeah, I think it's funny, the thing with Jokic, because Yusuf Nurkic is one of his best friends.
Yeah.
Like, they've known each other since 2014, 15,
Yep.
really. They have played against each other for almost like 9 years. So I think a lot of this is like, they are just so used to each other. Nurkic just offers a different type of challenge because he's going to foul early. He's going to foul heavy. He leans on Joker. Joker even said yesterday in a press conference that he's one of the strongest players he plays against. I believe Matt Moore from Action Never asked him that question.
Yep.
So I think some of this is Kristaps, though, is not a challenge for Joker. Has historically never been a challenge for Joker. And Al Horford, I love Al Horford, entirely too small. So I'm really excited about this. I actually think Jamal Murray is another one where Jamal had a really great game versus the Suns.
Yeah.
And they were blitzing him heavy.
Yeah.
But if Jamal Murray's shot making is there and the moment calls for greatness, man, I think this could be another feather in the cap of Jamal Murray. Let me ask you this, though.
Mm.
What do you expect? So narrative aside, basketball alone, what do you expect to see from the Boston Celtics game?
I expect them to be very aggressive, trying to get downhill early on in that game. I don't think they're going to bomb away from 3. I think they're going to try to dispel that narrative as much as possible. They're going to try to attack Denver defensively, and they're going to try to put pressure on Joker at the rim. Like that would be my expectation for them. They'll try to get him into foul trouble, or they'll try to get him to space out and have to guard somebody like Kristaps or whatnot. Denver, last time these two teams matched up, they floated around with Joker's matchup on defense, and they had him on Drew Holiday at times. They had him on Al Horford for the most part, but most of the time, like some of the time they had him on Drew Holiday trying to
Mhm.
get him away from the Kristaps spacing.
Yeah.
And that actually really helped Denver. They held Boston to 100 points, and that
Yeah.
was a big deal for why Denver was able to really lock down in the clutch defensively. So I'm curious to see how they do it. I wonder if Boston goes two bigs this time around, just a little bit more frequently, because this last time, like when they were in Boston, they went with just one big man and then had their four perimeter guys. Although you can't really take any of those guys off the floor. Like
Yeah, that's what I was gonna
who do
ask,
you
'cause
close with in
you
that
would basically
situation?
you're taking Derek White off and putting Al Horford in.
Or taking Drew off.
Yeah, I don't think they would do that though for $30 million a year.
I don't know. Like Derek White's been really good, man.
Yeah, but I think the thing is, if you do that, you disrupt their defense. Because now, if you're going to play a drop coverage versus Jamal, you're basically asking for trouble because they can't switch at that point. Or because if they start running a high pick and roll for Jamal,
Yeah.
or they run that like even the horn set. Like now, if AG is back screening for one of these bigs, and then he ends up getting like Jamal coming off one of those little DHO. I mean, that's just a lot to ask for.
I do think that Boston is definitely more dangerous with Kristaps as their only big man. There's
Right.
no doubt about that. And so that's what they'll probably go to.
Right.
But watch for that just in case they go
Yeah.
something different. Like I wonder if Denver forces them into a different situation, into a different matchup, that's already a win for Denver because they've already kind of like cast the first mark that Boston's best at that point wouldn't be as good as Denver's best at that point. So I'm very curious to see how that goes. Any X factors that you're looking at other than what's on the Boston side?
Well, look, Michael Porter Jr. has been absolute cash money lately.
Mhm.
Cash money. And I even thought he played well versus the Suns, defensively, here and there, like whatever, but
Yeah,
everybody was kind of struggling the first half.
sure.
But Porter's been great as a shooter. He started the game off really well yesterday as well. So I think some of this is, I think Porter, if he is able to find his shot early and he feel his movement is good because they're going to try to get him on isolation, which that's not necessarily working. They're going to target Jamal more than anybody else.
Probably.
But I think Porter, X factor, obviously, Aaron Gordon, just because it's Aaron Gordon and that's the role he has to play versus this team. But Peyton Watson was huge defensively last game, and he made a 3-pointer in Boston, and then he was also working in transition. So I think it's going to be the wing players for the Nuggets that are kind of determining how well they're going to be able to play. Because if they guard well and Porter's hitting his shots, that's just going to be a lot to overcome.
I remember last game being more of a Jokic and Jamal game,
Yeah.
and then the other wings around them struggled for the most part,
Right.
mostly AG and KCP
Hmm.
from an offensive perspective, but they're instrumental defensively. So Denver's going to have to get more from those guys, I think. They're going to have to get more shooting, spacing, efficiency, things like that, because I don't know if you can count on another 70 points from Jamal and Joker combined. Like maybe they'll get it. Maybe they will. And that would be awesome, but it's just not something you should be relying upon consistently. You should be trying to get more efficiency from your other guys too.
Man, if it comes down to a two-man game between Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic versus Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, I don't know who to take. Any last thoughts?
No, man. I think this is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I think that this is going to be one of those interesting games that could define the end of the regular season
Yeah.
because everybody's going to be tuned in for this one. Everybody's excited for this one, and you at home should also be excited too.
Yeah. Jason Tatum also is one of my favorite players. I think he's incredible and he deserves all the love he's getting. He's a first team All NBA player. Might not be quite an MVP level player yet, but he's incredible. And I think if you're a Denver Nuggets fan, this is a player you definitely should tap into. Just turned 26 years old. Really bright future ahead of him and really great player. But y'all, that's going to do it for Mile High Sports. What do you think in the comment section? What is your score prediction for the Denver Nuggets versus the Boston Celtics? Make sure y'all like, share, and subscribe. Continue to build up this Mile High Sports platform. Y'all, I'll see y'all on the other side.